Welcome to Nole, the official podcast of the College of Arts and Sciences at Florida State University. I'm your host, Amy Walden, the Assistant Director for Visual and Social Media with the College of Arts and Sciences. And today we welcome Pamela Keel, a distinguished research professor and the director of the Eating Behaviors Research Clinic in the Department of Psychology here at Florida State. Pamela, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me.
So Pamela is a fellow of the American Psychological Association, the Association for Psychological Science, the Academy for Eating Disorders, and the Radcliffe Institute. And over the summer, she was selected for membership in the Academy of Science, Engineering, and Medicine of Florida. So first of all, congratulations on that.
Thank you again.
On today's episode, we're talking about the area of your research surrounding social media and the psychological impacts it can have on users, which is a topic I'm very interested in. Before we dive into social media, can you tell us a little bit about your areas of research here at FSU?
Sure. So my program of research focuses on eating disorders and body image. And the lines of work that I have pursued here at Florida State University represent a continuation of work that I've been doing for going on 3 decades now. Yeah. And so one of the projects tracks how the prevalence or how common eating disorders are changes across generations, beginning with a cohort originally collected in 1982 and new cohorts collected every 10 years from the same college, but then also the course of eating pathology over people's sort of adult lifespan, doing 10, 20, 30, and now 40-year follow-up of these established cohorts. So that's one of the projects that's running right now. Another project that just wrapped up is really building on the sort of biological and sort of neuroscience contributions to things that contribute to how much we eat and why some people have these large out-of-control binge eating episodes, as well as biological factors that might leave some people vulnerable to purging through the use of self-induced vomiting when they do eat even amounts of foods that aren't that large. So that's kind of a project that's recently wrapped up. So a lot of publications are going to be coming out of that. And then with my students, gosh, anything and everything related to eating disorders and body image we've done.
Let's talk a little bit now about social media specifically. In 2020, you and your graduate student, Madeline Wick, conducted a study published in the International Journal of Eating Disorders that uncovered something very interesting regarding body image and the use of Instagram specifically. So before we get into the results, can you tell me first what you were trying to determine from this study and how the study was conducted?
Sure. So Madeline is still actually a doctoral student in the clinical psychology program here at FSU. And she came into the program with an interest in how social media could be a risk factor for the development of eating disorders based on her own observations of her peers. And so she and I worked together to develop a study where we could look at the ways in which people use social media, like not just what are you passively seeing when you're scrolling through your feed, but what are you doing when you're on social media? Is that something that could play a role in shifts in how you're feeling about your body, how you're feeling about the importance of maybe dieting or exercising, these kinds of things? And what we specifically focused on was photo-based activities. That is where you have a picture of yourself before you post it on Instagram, you edit it. Mm-hmm. And we had reason to believe that this could be a harmful thing to do, that if you're taking a photo and looking at it as a sort of object, like almost marketing yourself the way an advertiser might market, a sofa, sort of a thing, that might be bad. That might not be an okay thing to do. Yeah. And that on top of objectifying yourself, going through and identifying each of the physical, visible flaws in your appearance and then editing the photo to eliminate those flaws seemed, again, just not a great thing for one's self-image, because it's here's what's wrong with me, here's what's wrong with me. And then doing it in pursuit of likes or approval from whoever your followers are. Again, it was like, none of this can be good, right? None of this can be a great idea. But the literature really didn't have any causal evidence. There was nothing out there in the literature to show that editing or posting a photo of yourself on social media caused any changes in risk factors. So that's what we set out to do, is to first just understand what's the association between posting edited photos of yourself and levels of disordered eating. And then on top of it, by bringing people into the lab and randomly assigning them to conditions where they could have their photo taken and then we do nothing with it. They just look at it and respond to it. Have their photo taken and edit it, but not do anything with it. Have their photo taken, edit it, and then post it. Or have their photo taken, not do anything with it, just look at it and have it posted. We were able to really sort of look at what is being driven by the act of posting it, putting it out there for approval, what's being driven by sort of trying to fix your photo. We kind of were able to tease those things apart using an experimental design.
Yeah. And what did you find as a result of this research?
So we found that posting edited photos of yourself, like being randomly assigned to a condition where you were posting edited photos of yourself, was actually not good for you. It did cause increases in weight and shape concerns compared to the other conditions. We also found that just posting the photo, whether it was edited or not, also is problematic with regard to various kinds of things that are linked to increased risk for eating disorders. So increased weight and shape concerns are one of the most robust predictors of eating disorder risk or an eating disorder onset. But some of the other things we were looking at were things like that drive to engage in fasting, which is not great for you, or real extreme desire to exercise, also not great for you, as well as anxiety. We're sort of linked to just even putting a photo out there for other people to look at.
That's crazy to me to hear that. Like, I was really surprised by that result. And since you mentioned editing photos, something very interesting happened when people were filling out the consent form for the study, which included instructions that they would be required to post an unedited photo of themselves. Can you tell me what happened?
Yeah, we noticed something that we have not seen before in the lab, which is that I guess it's good because it meant that people were reading the consent form, and participation in any study with human subjects is always voluntary. So it's good that our participants understood that the whole purpose of consent was, if you are not cool with this, then you can say no and no problem.
True.
But yeah, we had some participants who, when they read the consent form and saw that they might be randomly assigned to a condition where they would have to post an unedited photo, basically said that they were no longer interested in trying to participate. We also had a couple of participants who signed the consent form, and when they learned that they had been randomly assigned to the condition where they were going to be posting an unedited photo, dropped out of the study. And that's the other thing, is that in terms of human subjects research, not only is it completely voluntary to decide to participate, it's also completely voluntary to continue in the study. And you can discontinue participation at any time, and it is completely fine. The upshot of it is, though, that whatever we did find in the study, it's based on people who are at least willing to do that, meaning that for those who might have been the most vulnerable to the effects of like these sort of photo-based activities, we may not have gotten them in the sample at all.
That part, it was so interesting to me that many people said, never mind. So it seems that the practice of editing photos has really taken on a new life with the popularity of beauty filters, which is something we hear a lot about now. And that changes your face in real time. Do you think beauty filters are exacerbating the problem that you found in this study?
I think that giving tools that reinforce the idea that we need to look a certain way is challenging. I think what is a constant sort of balance in my mind about trying to understand, here's a new thing, is it a threat? Is to sort of think about all the other things that have come along that have been viewed as threats, and then to kind of question how do we as individuals interact with these things, and to sort of appreciate that there's something coming from the environment, there's something coming from the culture, but there's also something coming from the individual. And what are sort of the individual's opportunities to pick up and put down certain things. And so I think that these real-time beauty filters and photo editing opportunities aren't great, because they do sort of reinforce pretty narrow conceptions of beauty, and they do emphasize the importance of appearance over other qualities that contribute to our value, really, in terms of who we are, what we do, and how we connect with other people. But I will also say that these tools in and of themselves aren't driving the phenomenon.
Right. It's almost a symptom of a bigger problem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So in 2021, documents came to light that suggested Facebook, now known as Meta, had collected data confirming that Instagram, which it owns, was harmful for teenage girls. And the company was accused of downplaying the problem. Do you think these large social network companies are really doing enough to address these kinds of issues?
That would be hard to say, because on the one hand, I want to give the companies credit for asking the question. Like, let's just start by saying, if you cared not at all about the consequences of the tools you're creating to connect people, if you're like, I don't care if that causes eating disorders, you wouldn't even ask the question. You wouldn't even have the research going on internally. So to ask the question, to my mind, seems like a kind of evidence, behavioral evidence, that somebody in these companies is like, we need to understand the impact of what we're doing. So that's good. I think that where the challenge comes in is the lack of transparency. And so when you say, are they doing enough? The thing about information is that it's the most valuable when people have it. And so collecting that information for internal purposes is better than ignoring the problem completely. But perhaps being a little bit more forthcoming with what they're finding would be to the greater social good, because it would certainly also create a little bit more focus on prioritizing, coming up with a solution. Like, oh, great. So you're asking the question so that you can identify the problem. Now let's figure out what the solutions are. And if you're thinking that you're going to solve it quietly by yourself, I can just say that's not how science works. It just isn't. That isn't how science works.
Very true. Very true. And speaking of solutions, now that we understand some of the risks, based on your research, what do you think are some things that people can do to help change their social media habits and perhaps improve their self-image?
Sure. So I think that social media is here to stay. I also think that social media is not in and of itself a bad thing. It gets back to how do we use these tools? How do we use these things? And what would be great would be to have some sort of program in which we teach sort of social media literacy. I'm sure, actually, I say that. I'm sure there is a program out there. I've just not canvassed the literature to find it. But the idea being, like, what are some of the things you can do? I would say that putting it down is going to be good. One of the things that we asked our participants to do in the study was to not post anything for 24 hours after whatever their experimental manipulation was. So regardless of what condition they were in, we asked them not to put anything else on their Instagram feed, and to allow us to follow them for that 24 hours so that we could also count the number of likes they were getting. We wanted to see if there was a difference in the number of likes they were getting on the edited versus unedited photos. Like, does it even work? Answer is no. There was no difference. Even when some of the participants got to edit their photo before posting it, and others just had to post whatever they got, made no difference on the number of likes they got. But the thing is that it kind of forced all of the participants to take a 24-hour break from putting anything on social media. And we saw that not only were the effects of the experimental manipulation sort of brief. It didn't like permanently leave people with higher weight and shape concerns. We actually saw that everybody seemed better after that 24-hour break than they did walking in the lab.
Oh, wow.
Now, we can't prove that the 24-hour break is the reason why, because we didn't have a group of participants who are then just like, okay, do nothing and just use your Instagram the way you normally do. Mm-hmm. But if we imagine a situation in which, you know, somebody's using their Instagram as they normally do, so that they're taking some photos, they're editing them, fixing them, posting them, and then something else happens in the day and they're scrolling through their feed and they're reacting to somebody else's content. And then they're doing something else so that they're repeatedly engaging in Instagram. And each time they do it, they're taking a moment of a hit. Every time you post, it's like, ouch. You know, every time you edit, it's like, oh, ouch. You know, like each time it's like, ouch. If that's happening repeatedly, there's sort of cumulative potentially damage being done, right? Just taking a full 24-hour break from it, maybe that's like, you know, like it's getting a good night's sleep.
Yeah, and it's something we've seen a lot more of lately is people saying, hey, I'm taking a break from social media. They'll post about it even and let people know, I'm okay, I just need a break. And it seems to be pretty common now and people are realizing that that's beneficial too.
Yeah.
You know.
And I would say that what do you do during that break? I think spending time with people in real life is a great idea. Because in real life, sure, we can do our hair and we can do makeup and we can wear cute clothes. But we all, other than that, we look the way we look, you know? And I think when you spend time with people in real life, everything is dynamic, it's moving. You're going to be focusing on so much more in terms of what is the person saying? How are they behaving? How are they making me feel? How do I feel like I'm making them feel? You know, like all these kind of like dynamic connections that you're not going to get through a screen. So, you know, a little bit of a break, connecting with people in real life, I think is a really good thing to do. And then when you are on social media, attend to the fact that what you see is dictated by how you are training that social media algorithm to get your attention. And so as much as it might be easy to dwell on something that is troubling to you, just get that the longer you pause on something, the more the program is going to give that to you. So if you find yourself focusing on something that is kind of like a threat to you, whether it's related to weight or shape or appearance or just anything, just get that you're now training the program to give you more of that thing that's upsetting to you. So if you can, make yourself pause on the things that make you feel happy. So try to notice what it is on social media where you're like, oh, I really like this. I really like this actually lifts me up. This makes me feel good and happy. Try to get yourself to spend more time on that because then you can kind of get your own feed to feed that to you as well.
I think that's great advice, and that's something that a lot of people aren't really thinking about or aware of. So thank you for that. So we end every podcast with our bowl of mystery questions. So Pamela, if you would, please draw a question and answer.
Okay. Oh, dear. Gosh, so many things.
Okay, what does it say?
It says, what's something people would be surprised to learn about you? I'm going to keep it professional.
You don't have to.
No, I think I'm going to do that. Like all the things that come to mind is like, well, let's keep that a mystery. The thing that comes to mind is that I did not major in psychology as an undergraduate. I was an anthropology major, and I only took, at the time that I applied to graduate school in clinical psychology because I knew that I wanted to do research in eating disorders. I had only taken intro to psych, and before taking intro to psych, had taken an elective just for fun on eating disorders, and that's how I decided to do what I do. But I applied to graduate school, and I like just jumped right in. So I think that is something that people might be surprised is that the way that I got into the field of clinical psychology was completely driven by eating disorders, and as a consequence, I kind of was doing things like learning very much on the fly.
And one class can make all the difference in your career path.
Yeah.
Who knew? All right, well, Pamela, thank you so much for joining us today on Knowledge. And if you would like to learn more about Pamela Keel and her research at the Eating Behaviors Research Clinic and the Department of Psychology, visit psy.fsu.edu. Thank you for tuning into Knowledge, and we'll catch you next time.